Hey, this is Chris from Recombu, and I'm here with the sexy, gorgeous new Sony Xperia XZ1 flagship phone, freshly launched at IFA 2017. And we're going to do a quick side-by-side with the OnePlus 5 to see what the difference is, which one might be the best for you if you're considering a new smartphone purchase. Well, first of all, stick them side by side. You see there's not much difference in it in terms of dimensions. They're about the same height, same width, same thickness and everything as well, despite the fact that the Sony Xperia XZ1 rocks a 5.2-inch screen compared to the rather whopping 5.5-incher on the OnePlus. That's mostly down to the fact that Sony has, of course, got big fat bezels above and below the screen, and sort of to the side they're relatively thick as well, whereas obviously the OnePlus, the screen stretches almost edge to edge, and it's a little bit slimmer top and bottom, although it is still quite a tall handset. In terms of the general design, they're both metallic monsters, as you can see if you flick around to the back here. They seem to be pleasingly resistant to scratches, scuffs and greasy fingerprint marks and all that kind of stuff so far, touch wood. We've only been testing the XZ1 for about 3 days now in total, so we'll give it a little bit longer to see how that one holds up. But the OnePlus certainly been rocking that for a good couple of months now, and that is showing no signs of wear and tear. Great stuff. They've both got ever so slightly jutting camera lenses, as you can see there. And while the OnePlus rocks a more traditional sort of a tapered design, as you can see there, the Sony Xperia, it's got this Sony loop design, so as you can see it's kind of symmetrical top and bottom, and it just has these pleasingly curved edges that feel really nice and good and comfortable to grip. That said, OnePlus is also a comfortable grip. You can just about get away with one-handed use, although it is a little bit of a struggle, to be honest. But thankfully, OnePlus has helped out in that regard. You can pull down the notifications bar from any part of the screen. There's a couple of little bits of gesture support in there as well, which unfortunately the Sony doesn't have. Hey ho. But the Sony does beat the OnePlus in terms of water resistant. It's a fully water resistant smartphone. You don't get that on the OnePlus, sadly. So don't go get this way. It's splash proof, just about, although it's not certified splash proof. But we have used it in the rain. It's been absolutely fine. That's as much as you can get away with there. They're both Type-C, as you can see down below and everything. They've both got a headphone jack as well. On the OnePlus, it's down on the bottom. On the Sony, it's up top. Both got a fingerprint sensor as well, so as you can see, it's mounted on the edge of the Sony Xperia XZ1, right here on the side, so typical for Sony. On the OnePlus, it's housed beneath the screen in this little home button here. And in both cases, very, very fast and responsive. So as you can see, just turn the Sony off. Give them a quick tap. You actually have to just tap your thumb against the OnePlus in order to load it up. With the Sony, you have to push it in slightly, but it does load up straight away as well. There's absolutely nothing in it whatsoever. Tap. There we go, you're straight on your desktops. OnePlus slightly faster, but they're both pleasingly responsive. You won't be there for ages saying, oh, fingerprint not recognized or anything like that. You're straight into your desktops all of the time, which is lovely. They're both rocking a rather gorgeous screen as well. It's a 5.2-inch IPS screen on the Sony Xperia XZ1. So while it's not as naturally vibrant as the AMOLED panel on the OnePlus, thankfully Sony has helped out a little bit in that regard. I mean, this is Sony we're talking about. They know how to do a good display. If you jump into here, you can activate a super vivid mode, which really boosts those colors. So as you can see, if you're in the standard mode, it's more realistic, natural hues. Super vivid mode just really brings them to life, gives them a nice, vibrant, lush finish. So if we put them side by side, as you can see there, the colours really do stand out quite nicely. In fact, some of the colours, such as the reds, for instance, they seem to look a little bit nicer on the Sony. If we just boost up the brightness a little bit, that'll help, of course, on the OnePlus. But they're both nice, bright panels, good viewing angles and everything, as you can see there. You can see them even when you've got glare coming on them, you can still clearly see what's going on. So yeah, so nice, gorgeous displays. The Sony does have the benefit here though of having HDR support. So it's got support for mobile HDR format, which the likes of Amazon Prime Video and Netflix will be supporting from launch of the Sony Xperia XZ1. So you will have some content to download. It probably won't be much, but you'll be able to at least make the use of it, and of course that will expand over time. You can expect nice, gorgeous, impressive contrast levels and a full wide color gamut as well. So more accurate image representation basically on the Sony Xperia XZ1. In terms of the speakers as well, you get pretty powerful one speaker on the OnePlus 5, but the S-Force just has it. We've done some brief audio testing, and certainly music sounds very nice and crisp and clear on the Xperia XZ1, and a little bit more powerful than it does on the OnePlus. However, you do get lots of great audio bonuses on the Sony. So if we jump into the audio section, here we go. You'll see it's got full support for DSE-HX, bit of a mouthful, which basically boosts the quality of compressed tracks, makes them sound a bit sexier. And it's also got support for full high-res audio and all the rest of it as well, so that's always good to have. So let's face it, if you're a media fan, either of these phones will definitely do the job. If you don't like streaming your media as well, if you prefer to download, then that's no problem whatsoever. They both support micro SD cards, and you get 64 gigs of storage is standard in the Sony. You get 64 or 128 in the OnePlus. This is of course the Midnight Black model, so you've got plenty of storage packed away in there. You can see we've only used 10 gigs of it so far because we tend to do more streaming than downloading. But yeah, you've got plenty of space on there, so it's all good. And of course, they both run a bit of Android, but on the case of the Sony Xperia XZ1, this is actually the latest version of Android. If we dump into System and then Software, there you go, 8.0.0, so Android Oreo. Whereas this bad boy here runs Android Nougat still, 7.1.1, but we're expecting OnePlus to update that hopefully by the end of 2017 to full Oreo, which is coming out now, of course. And of course, they also run their own little overlays on top. So you've got OxygenOS on this bad boy, and you've got Sony's own overlay on here. In both cases, you get a few extra little additional features. So for instance, where you've got Google now, if you swipe across on the Sony Xperia, you get the OxygenOS shelves on this bad boy. And that basically just allows you to set up a bunch of widgets which you can scroll through, and you can move them around if you want, like so. You can add in new ones and all the rest of it. So it's basically just a way of getting all your widgets on one scrollable panel, which is quite nice. You get a couple of other little bonus features as well in the OnePlus. For instance, you get lots of gesture support, loads of gesture support. So yes, you can draw various letters to open up apps, bit double tap to wake and all the rest of it, all that kind of stuff. And you also get a couple of bonus display modes as well. So for instance, you get a night mode on this, which filters the blue light, which you don't get, unfortunately, on the Sony. Bit of a shame. And you can also mess around with the status bar quite a lot, as you can see there. Play around with all that. And you get the new gamer mode as well, which is tucked away. I believe it's an advanced, game and do not disturb mode. So if you're getting a bit of a game on, you can just stop your notifications from coming through and messing up your best time and all the rest of it. And you also get a new reading mode as well, which doesn't really seem to do anything. It just sort of gives a monochrome effect when you're reading an ebook. So yeah, a few little bits like that. The Sony, the biggest update that we haven't already mentioned is the PS4 Remote Play support. So basically you can just jump into the PlayStation app, you can stream your PS4 gaming session via Wi-Fi direct to your screen. And of course, if you hook up your DualShock controller, you can actually play your PS4 games on this, this small screen of the smartphone, which is pretty cool. As for performance, well, Snapdragon 835 in both of these bad boys, and it is super nippy. As you can see, you just have absolutely no problem whatsoever. Scrolling around, super fast. And if you want to load an app, they just load up instantly. So let's just do a quick side by side. See, tap the Chrome app, there we go, straight into it, no problem whatsoever. And in around 2 benchmarking scores, they both score very similar, they absolutely fly. So you'll have no trouble playing the latest games, and they should both last the length of a 2-year contract, no problem whatsoever, which is good stuff. You get 6 gigs of RAM in the OnePlus 5, or 8 gigs if you plump for certain models, pay a little bit extra. Whereas you get 4 gigs in the Sony Xperia XZ1, but that's more than enough. Had absolutely no trouble, as you can see there. It's nice and nippy. As for the battery tech, well, you get a 2,700 milliamp battery packed into the Sony, and of course you get loads of bonus power modes as well. So if we go to the battery, we've been getting about a sort of a day and a bit of charge, and that's with very heavy usage, so lots of Spotify, Netflix streaming, all that kind of stuff. No problem whatsoever. And of course you do have the stamina mode and the ultra stamina mode, and you've also got Qnovo battery tech in here as well, so that basically just prevents the battery from overcharging. It learns your charging habits and all the rest of it, so hopefully over the life of the phone we shouldn't see any battery degradation. So far no problems with the OnePlus either. You once again get lots of bonus modes, so as you can see we generally get about a day of use out of the OnePlus. It's not quite as strong as the Sony. You'll have to be relatively restrained if you want to make it into a second day, but again you get a battery saver mode, so it's a little bit more basic, but it still does the job. Which brings us nicely onto, of course, the camera tech. So OnePlus, of course, the OnePlus 5 is the first OnePlus device to rock a dual lens camera. It's a 20 megapixel and a 16 megapixel, I believe it is, dual lens camera. So you get a 20 megapixel telephoto lens, 16 megapixel wide angle lens, and that wide angle lens rocks an f1.7 aperture lens as well. So basically that means it's really, really good for low light shots and all the rest of it. If we load up the camera app, you'll see it's a pretty straightforward camera interface as well, which is always nice. And you just snap away. It's super, super quick. You've got your burst mode. If you want to, you can just hold down the shutter button and it rattles off a load of shots in one go. And you've got a few little bonus modes as well. You can do like time lapse, shoot a portrait, which basically gets a nice bit of bokeh effect in the background because of that dual lens setup. And that works really, really well actually. It does a solid job. And then you can flick between the different camera modes as well. So you can shoot down to video. If you scroll up instead, then you're into the depth effect mode, which again does a very similar thing to the portrait mode. Just gives you a nice sort of blurry background bokeh effect and all the rest of it. So yeah, and you get full manual controls and all the rest of it as well. By shooting into pro mode, there you go. And that gives you the control of the white balance, ISO levels, all that kind of stuff. So that in a nutshell is the OnePlus camera. You also get a 13 megapixel, I believe, 16 megapixel up front, 16 megapixel front facing camera too. Sony Xperia XZ1, it's a little bit more advanced, even though it's just got a single lens. It's just a single 19 megapixel rear camera. You can actually shoot, oh, what's happened here? Let's try that again. Camera. Oh dear, that's not good. Okay, so just had to restart the Sony Xperia XZ1, not ideal. Obviously it's not final software, it's still pre-release. So hopefully that won't actually happen when you get yours, if you decide to go for it. But basically, yeah, as I said, 19 megapixel rear camera. It's got, again, a pretty stripped down interface. If you've used the Sony phone before, you'll know exactly what to expect. Again, it's a pretty nippy shutter action, slightly more processing time on the Sony. But you do now get a burst mode, which is great, something that Sony has ditched for its past few Xperias. And it uses autofocus during the burst mode as well, so you can expect nice crisp images throughout. You can of course flip to full video mode. You can shoot up to 4K resolution video on either of these phones. You can also shoot slow motion on either, although the Sony phone has the benefit of the super slow motion mode, which shoots up to 960 frames per second fragments over the course of about a second every time you tap the button basically. So if we start recording, every time you tap this button here, it'll shoot a quick second or so of 960 frames per second slow motion. So that's a great little feature for those action shots. Really, really impressive results indeed. And of course you get full manual controls as well. So if you flip down, there we go. And you can just tap this and you've got straight into your white balance and all the rest of it again there. So you can get exactly the kind of shot that you desire. And with both these phones, we find that we get, on standard auto mode, we get really, really nice shots in pretty much any conditions. Even in quite low light, you'll get good looking shots. The HDR mode is solid in both, so you can get good shots even in high contrast. And the video is fantastic as well. Great image stabilization, even with 4K, thanks to the OnePlus 5's recent update. So you'll get nice smooth video even on top Ultra HD resolution. So lots to look forward to there. And in terms of the front-facing camera on the Xperia, this is a 13 megapixel front-facing camera. And yeah, they're both great for selfies. Like if you want to take a detail-packed snap of your mug, either of these phones will do the job. So that, in a brief nutshell, is basically the Sony Xperia XZ1 versus the OnePlus 5. Full specs and all that kind of stuff are on our website, so go check that out. And give us a like and a subscribe and all that. Thanks, guys. And any questions or comments, just hit us up below. Cheers for watching. Bye.